once again, on time, on schedule, like clockwork, which is what more than what the USPS can say. We are doing another episode of the Belt Chronicles. This week, we are focusing on the NWA Thesz belt. Now, I want to say something right off the bat. Number one, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. We're about to cross 950. We did it the other day, and I had two people jump off. I fell down to 948. Right now, at the time of filming, it is at 949. So I look at my analytics. 2/3 of you that watch my stuff are not subscribed. It's free. It helps you get more wrestling and wrestling belt content in your algorithm. And it helps me grow this channel. So that's the first thing I want to get to. Second thing I want to say is right now, it is currently the 4th of July as I'm filming this. And so you may hear some fireworks go off in the background. So just be aware of that. People have been blowing up M80s and quarter sticks and half sticks and stuff all day long. So just know if you hear that, that's the reason why. But I want to get this video shot so that I can also shoot my next one. And I'll tell you what that one is here at the end of the video. But we are, like I said, we're focusing on the Lou Thesz belt. This belt existed, basically, it was in use from 1937 until 1957. And Lou Thesz came into the NWA with this belt, which is why when he dropped it to Dick Hutton in November of 1957, he kept his belt. And the NWA didn't have a belt until 1959 when this belt, although it was on a fabric strap and not a leather strap, this belt was introduced as the World Championship. And so the reason why I have this book here is because they actually have Chapter 6 on page 64 rather. Chapter 6 is on the Thesz belt. And so basically when Thesz won it, December 29th of 1937, it said the title Thesz won from Everett Marshall in 1937 was the Midwest Wrestling Association title, originally based out of Ohio in 1931 and promoted by Al Haft, but by 1937, basically controlled by St. Louis promoter Tom Pax and Billy Sandow. So they presented it to Thesz, and then the promotion gets bought out by Thesz. It says here on the first paragraph, as mentioned in earlier chapters, the belt that Lou Thesz wore as world champion until 1957 was a belt he owned that came with his purchase of Tom Pax's St. Louis promotional office in 1949. So that's the reason why Thesz kept his belt when he dropped it to Dick Hutton. He actually owned his belt because he owned the territory that belt came from. So there is a bit of history that I'm not totally clear on. I know in the 1930s they had the National Wrestling Association that made Jim Londos the champion. But I don't know how it dissolved and how it later became the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance. But I do know there is a little bit of history to be told about this belt itself and the reason why it became the belt. And what it is the history of Orville Brown. Orville Brown was kind of the man that ran Kansas City Wrestling for a time before it was Bob Geigel and later Harley Race. And so Orville Brown was a professional wrestler, and he was the heavyweight champion of the Midwest Wrestling Association. And I have a photo here of his belt before it gets altered to later say National Wrestling Alliance. But November 1st, 1949, while he was set to face Lou Thesz sometime soon, that match never happened because November 1st, he was driving back home from a wrestling show, and I think he had a passenger in his car, if I'm not mistaken. And when he came up over the hill, there was a semi-truck kind of jackknifed with his trailer across the road. And they couldn't get stopped in time, and he collided with a semi-truck, and that ended his wrestling career. He later went on to just be the promoter, and that match with Lou Thesz never happened. So, once we get past that, I'll put images up, of the car. The fact that he survived that is incredible. And like I said, I think he had a passenger that also survived, but he pulled him out of the car. And his grandson appeared on an episode of Antiques Roadshow and had the belt of praise. I don't remember what it went for, how much they said it was worth, but you can see he's standing there with the host, and they got the poster board and stuff. And I'll give you as good images as I can from them doing close-ups on the belt. And you can see where it says National Wrestling Alliance, and you can see National and Alliance have been added. That wasn't original. It's a single plate belt on a brown strap. It originally said Midwest Wrestling Association, and obviously was modified later to say National Wrestling Alliance. So the Thesz belt itself is a 7-plate belt that was held together with chains. There was not a leather strap on it early on, and through most of its life, really. You can see when Thesz is presented with it, there's Tom Pax on the right. You can see that there's no strap behind it, but you can see there's a strap at each end. It's held together with basically like chain links, more or less. Just a single piece of like rounded chain going in between each plate. And when you see the belt later in life, you can see that the nameplate has been changed. Instead of saying Louis Thesz, it just says Lou Thesz. And I have a photo that I'm going to put up right now of Lou Thesz wearing it, where he's fairly young. I'd say he's probably his mid to late 30s, I would think. And you can see where I put the little arrow, it looks like there's an S in Louis. So that would make sense. And later on in his life, the nameplate would read Lou, because he never went by Louis. So I'm sure he wanted it just to say Lou. But I don't know if because I've done a few takes of this video, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but the St. Louis Globe-Democrat, which was the newspaper in St. Louis, declared that the belt was studded with 456 diamonds, 176 rubies, and 144 sapphires, with 6 large diamonds in the centerpiece of the 7 links. Which I want to say the centerpiece they're talking about is right here in the main plate, because I don't think there may be stones here. It looks like I'll have to put pictures up because I can't remember off the top of my head. But supposedly, the Dan Gable Museum up in Waterloo, Iowa, it has Lou Thesz's original belt. That's what somebody claimed on the internet. Is I got a photo of Lou Thesz's belt. It's at the Dan Gable Museum, and I'll put the photo up that he shared. Whoever this person was, it was a off of a website. Hang on. Sorry. So anyway, it was off of a website, and this guy said that he went to the Dan Gable Museum and they had Lou Thesz's belt. Okay, if that's the case, which I don't believe it is, there's something wrong here. It's been restoned. Because I'm going to put photos up of Lou having the belt in his home. You'll see Lou looking up at the belt. And notice the side plates. I'll point this out to you here. The side plates go red, white stones, blue stones. The one that's supposedly in the Dan Gable Museum, which I will get a look at here in about 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks or 3 weeks? 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time, I don't know if you hear those fireworks back there, doesn't look right to me, because the stones that are closest to the main plate, instead of being red like they should be, they're blue. So that's one thing. Another thing is, this portion of the belt here is all silver plated. There's no black paint in there. If you look again at the photo that I showed, it's painted in with black paint. It doesn't look right. And then there's one more thing that I noticed. In 1994, they released a documentary on Lou Thesz with Lou in it, and Lou has the belt in his possession. It's been put on the leather strap at this point in his life, because I'm sure the chains were hanging on by a thread. So it's been put on leather. The ring ropes, when we do a close-up, one of the ring ropes is bent. It's the top rope of the closest set of ropes. So we'll zoom in here a little bit. This rope right here has a bend in it when they're doing close-ups during the documentary. Go back to the one that's at the Dan Gable Museum. It doesn't have it. So they can't just unbend something without having it, heated up and then having to reattach it. And the stones ain't right, and the bottom portion of the main plate is not right. So I want to ask them where they got it. If they say they got it from Lou Thesz's family, if they say they bought it at an auction, I don't know. But I personally don't believe that this is Lou Thesz's belt. So that takes care of that. Now, I said I was going to the museum And here's why. Because the weekend of the 18th, 19th, and I think the 20th, I think they're also doing something on the 20th, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put the flyer up, the poster up. They are having a fan fest up there, and it's in conjunction with SICW, the same one that does the fan fest in St. Louis. And they are doing a fan fest, and you can see the people that are right on the screen right now. And so I'm going to go up there. I'm going to get my 91 through 94 WCW heavyweight signed by Ron Simmons, because I just this past weekend met Lex Luger and Sting, and I had them sign it. Here's a picture. So I had them sign it, and so I'm going to have Ron sign it, and I'm also going to try to get something signed by Eric Bischoff, and also going to bring my WWF tag along, my Fandu WWF tag. I'm going to get that signed by Demolition, and I think I'm going to get something signed by Edge too while I'm up there. But I will be up there that weekend. I don't know which day yet. I need to call them probably tomorrow. I think today's Thursday, if I'm not... No, today's Friday. So I'll call them on this coming Monday and figure out all the dates and stuff, because it's kind of confusing down there on the bottom right-hand portion of the screen when the fan fests are. It looks like there's multiple meet and greets. But that is going to be, like I said, in 2 weeks, I'm going to take a couple belts up there, have some stuff signed. So I am, as far as the video that's coming up next, I sent a belt of mine out to get re-leathered. It's got the leather completed now. It's in my possession, and it's also been signed by Jerry Lawler. That is coming at you next week, so look for that one. I'm not telling you what it is. If you know, you know. If you don't, you'll find out. So I will see you guys next week when we do the review of my re-leather on one of my belts. I'll see you then.